right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Something Super Podcast. I'm Steve.
And I'm Mark.
So today we have our buddy Eddie joining us. Say what's up, Eddie.
What's up, guys?
So we got Eddie involved. He's been listening to our podcast since day one. Thank you for being a huge fan. And, he's been a lifelong friend of ours. Mark's known him forever. I've known him for a few years now. Eddie is also a closet nerd just like us, and that's awesome. So we decided to replace Jay today, since I'm pretty sure he's dead in a ditch somewhere, with Eddie. And so we're gonna do a little bit of stuff different, I guess would be the best way to describe it. So Eddie, what do you want to talk about today? We're gonna give you the reins for this show, and we'll see where things go.
Well, for one of the big things I'd like to talk about is the Fassbender news about him possibly taking over as Dr. Doom, since they said that he will not be continuing the role as Magneto, and what that means for the universe, as well as him taking over, like in the Fantastic Four side, as well as the X-Men side.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to see, obviously, how that sort of affects it, because we are getting an MCU Fantastic Four movie, which Mark, you and I spoke about a couple episodes ago in like the upcoming Disney, etc. Series. And then obviously we're looking forward to Disney taking over the X-Men, the Marvel, MCU taking over X-Men and that whole franchise. So it'll be interesting to see if they recast everyone, since, Michael Fassbender obviously has a role in both of those worlds, or if it's just a Magneto recast.
Well, one thing that I've been reading, and this honestly we'll get to more in our Deadpool episode that we're going to do, but as of right now, Ryan Reynolds is the only person from Deadpool that's even signed on to come over to Marvel. So they may be recasting everything. I've also read, though, that they're not going to do an X-Men movie. Instead, they're going to have the X-Men pop up in the other movies. But I heard that they may not have their own. So you might get, right now we're getting WandaVision, which is kind of running the House of M storyline. That might branch out into Doctor Strange 2, where we're supposed to be getting apparently Wolverine and a couple others. I'm guessing the staples, probably Cyclops, Jean Grey, Wolverine, the usual beast.
Correct.
And then I heard that it was in Black Panther 2 is when you're going to get Doctor Doom, but not necessarily the Fantastic Four. So I think rather than they are going to have a Fantastic Four movie, but I've read that with X-Men, they may not be giving them their own movie, but I'm hyped as shit to see Michael Fassbender play Dr. Doom, honestly.
I think he'd kill that role. I think he'd absolutely kill that role.
He'd be phenomenal. But Mark, you did mention a few things in there. So one, did you guys both watch WandaVision episode 3 yet?
Absolutely. And
I did not.
Oh, dude,
I actually want to do it.
I am King Slacker.
Bruh, I'm telling you right now, it's sprinting right now. Usain Bolt has took off.
It is so good. So Mark, I think what we should do is a mid-season, episode 5 recap of the past 5 episodes, obviously, because we already did 1 and 2, and then we'll do an end of season wrap up episode. Bro. And then Michael B. Jordan for Black Panther 2. I heard, rumor, speculation that he's coming back. I don't know. Obviously, I don't think he's going to come back as the, King of Wakanda, but just to have him sort of reprise his role as Killmonger in any sort of, facet is pretty awesome, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. He did awesome in that role. I loved his take on Killmonger.
This is where I'm going to disagree. I agree with you, Eddie. He did a phenomenal job as Killmonger, in Black Panther. I'm not disagreeing there. I'm disagreeing with bringing him back. Obviously, I understand you got to replace the star power in Chadwick Boseman, R.I.P.
Correct.
But if you're already going to have Shuri taking over the mantle, you're already bringing in Dr. Doom, who arguably is top 3 strongest in the MCU next to Wanda and, Jean Grey. So, you have Wanda, Maximoff, Dr. Doom, even Magneto, top 4, I would say. And I would say Dr. Doom out of those 4 is top 3. So you're telling me that now Black Panther is going to be fighting one of the strongest people in the MCU, plus have to worry about now Killmonger. I'm just afraid it's going to turn into a damn rainy Superman or Spider-Man 3, where it's going to get too much on top of itself. I would like to see maybe in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse bring him back as another universe or yeah, another universe is Killmonger, but I
Mm.
wouldn't want him as the staple coming back as Killmonger.
Sure. And I don't want you to think that I was saying like, oh, I want him to come back as a bad guy. He might just come back in a flashback, but I know, again, from what I heard, he just signed on to reprise his role, not necessarily as a bad guy in the movie. You know, he could very well pull, hey, we're doing a fucking flashback to this instance where him and Shuri had a, heart to heart, whatever, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But I mean, whether he signed on as a villain, which again, he was a fantastic villain in the first movie, and I don't think it would be smart to do it twice because
Right.
lightning never strikes twice like that. But he would be a decent, again, throw it into a flashback, throw it into, a remembrance thing that they're doing for him, or how, his path to turning evil, except whatever the case may be. But I totally agree with you. Don't overdo it with the star power.
Right. And I mean, the other way that I could see them doing it is, I forget what it's called, but when they pass over to like the land of the dead or whatever it's called in Wakanda,
Oh.
when they sniff the
Oh yeah,
fire
the
or
fruit.
whatever.
Yeah, when
Yeah,
he
when they
like
eat
goes
the
and lays
fruit.
down in the purple sand.
Yeah, so like I could see Shuri passing over, and then they maybe do like a CGI Chadwick Boseman Black Panther along with Killmonger, like both of them on the other side, kind
Yep.
of like they reconciled, and they could do it that way. But
That'd
I
be
don't
cool.
want to see him come back as like a main
No.
staple.
Well, I don't.
Like-
I don't want to see them bring him back to life like in that regard.
Right, like don't ruin him when he's already done something great. Like that's the biggest
Exactly.
thing. It's like, yeah, we hit lightning here. Let's come back to it. Like, it's
And that's
like
one of the
reason
worst
why
things you can
Thanos-
do.
Right, like Thanos was such a huge character because you only teased him up until Infinity War, and Infinity War was not an Avengers movie. Infinity War was Thanos's movie.
Mhm.
Endgame was the Avengers movie.
Yeah.
So
Oh, true.
like you laid the ground, you introduced him, you gave him a great story with a great arc to where he was the victor, and then you toppled him, which makes sense. Like with Killmonger, he built up, and honestly, his build up was super quick. Like all he did was just kill oh my god, what's his name with the hook? Andy Serkis's character.
Yeah.
I can't think of his name offhand in the Black Panther comics. I apologize, but
No, I just watched Ultron the other day, and just to give it a good rewatch. And yeah, I can't for the life of me think of his name. But yes, I know exactly who you're talking about.
I also
wanna
know
say his
and
name
I
is-
cannot remember his name either.
I want to say it's just something Claw.
Yeah, I think it is just Claw. Like that's his nickname.
Right. But either way, yeah, like I wouldn't be mad at seeing a Killmonger return. It's all in how they do it. And I'm sorry. I hate how Marvel usually portrays their villains. Like literally, there's no reason why Ultron should have been killed off that quick. There was no reason why Thanos wasn't killed off quick, but like you had Red Skull get defeated, and then like these are the staples of Marvel, and they're in there like one movie. It's like,
Yep.
Cool. But yeah, no, in addition to him coming back, there's rumors floating around that we might get the good old Captain America. How you feeling about that, Eddie?
Oh, I love that. Chris Evans as Cap. I love that. I'd love to see him do anything in any facet. Even
Now
if
I'm
it's
just curious. So at the end of Endgame, obviously, Cap goes and lives his life with Peggy and gives Falcon the shield.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel about that, Eddie? Because I know me personally, I wanted it to go to Bucky, at least for a little bit of a time being, and then Sam take over the reins. But
Yeah. Like, while I agree with that, and I do kind of like the fact that it went to him, because especially the way they build it up in the MCU, he was there from pretty much the beginning of him coming back to like reality and trying to come to terms with being so far in the future and away from his time. He was one of his first like friends that he had.
yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I don't know. I always liked Bucky's Captain America in the comics personally, but
Yeah.
Well, again, I like the concept of it, but I think that the Winter Soldier, Bucky built his own sort of brand in the MCU that they didn't want to sort of disparage that. And then Falcon, I mean, yes, he has his his big superhero moment, I guess, when he comes out of portal, and he's like, on your left, and he pulls that, the reference back to
Callback.
the callback, and that's huge. But other than that, Falcon's been sort of a B cast player when it comes to Avengers movies. So this is going to sort of bring him more into the spotlight, whereas Bucky's had his time to shine. He's done his thing. He is a, full on Avenger at this point, doing his Winter Soldier bit. While I agree he's an amazing Captain America in the comics, I think just for the MCU's need, it was more a Falcon thing.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. And the one thing I love are people that are like, it makes no sense to have them have a TV show together. I'm like, literally, they've been building this TV show for a while now.
Oh yeah.
Like literally, if you go back and watch Civil War, like them two fight Spider-Man like as a team.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and not only that, but if they use the same algorithm that they used for WandaVision, because the Marvel, MCU TV shows, this is going to be an amazing show. And it's going to be sort of what you expected out of WandaVision from the beginning, is that actiony, sort of in your face, punch and kick, tag team, good cop, bad cop, buddy cop duo type thing. And that's what's going to draw people in as far as action TV series. Whereas WandaVision's very much the, 50s, 60s, and now 70s sitcom series.
Yeah.
See, I don't know. I think for me, the thing that makes it hard for me to believe in him as Captain America is because I still see him as Clarence, who lives at home with both parents.
I was
fair.
waiting for that.
And I don't know, like for me, I'm just like, I enjoy the comedy. Like I think it was in Civil War when they're sitting in the car or whatever, and Bucky's in the back seat, and he's like, "Can you move your seat up?" And Falcon's like, "No." He just starts like kicking his seat or whatever. And, like so like. I know that they have that banter, and I'm hyped that if they do it as a buddy cop series, because I know Loki looks like he's gonna be like a time agent now.
Mm-hmm.
You have obviously WandaVision that's kind of going that House of M style where she's gonna create her own reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love though to see, and if they do bring back Steve Rogers, Chris Evans, I think that would be an awesome way to either end the TV show or maybe like give Anthony Mackie and Bucky their first movie, because it was like, oh, and Captain America the Winter Soldier, like Bucky's the villain. Now let's flip it. Now you have Winter Soldier and Falcon where Steve Rogers is the villain, and you go like he actually was the deep Hydra agent, or he actually like an alternate timeline. We're getting What If, we're getting the multiverse. Like maybe in one of those, Baron Zemo finds a way to navigate the multiverse, and he finds one where Captain America was the head of Hydra or something like that.
Well, I mean, so sorry to cut you off, but remember in what was it, Endgame, when they go to get the Infinity Stones and Bruce Banner goes and talks to the Ancient One, and it basically states like, hey, this is how the timelines work. Like if this happens, it's going to not affect this timeline, is going to cause a spur in a different timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's what happens, and we're looking at a completely different timeline now, because that is exactly what happened, but they did it, how many times? 6 different times, 5 times to get all 6 Infinity Stones. So now there are 6 separate timelines rolling around that with 6 separate possibilities. He could have, again, if we're getting the multiverse theory, we have 6 other places we can look now for a bad Captain America. And some of them happened in the time of Howard Stark. So, we're looking at the potential of, a bad Captain America, or again, in the What If series, like a Peggy Carter Captain America.
Yeah, because one thing that I kind of agree with that, but the thing is they went back to the initial point that they took it. So the Stones really never left those timelines. Where I think the ripple is happening is the Loki scene where he takes the Tesseract. Mm-hmm. I think that's the one that splits it off, because you're right. When the Elder One's talking to Bruce Banner and she pulls one out, it creates that ultimate timeline. Mm-hmm. He's like, but what if we put them all back? She's like, you should be fine. Well, now on that, when they go back in time to Avengers 1, you're now removing the Tesseract from that timeline. So I don't think that future timeline got affected by them taking the stones and bringing them there to defeat Thanos. I think it's happening earlier now with the Tesseract being removed.
Well, you could also, think that because Captain America never existed during the Avengers time, that also affected that timeline. Because now Bucky or whatever, Falcon had to be Captain America during all of those major fights, the Battle of New York. If Steve Rogers was old, he didn't fight in the Battle of New York.
Mm.
Well, they confirmed that there was 2 Steve Rogers through this entire time. So while the one Steve Rogers was growing old with Peggy, the other Captain America was still frozen and then gets thawed out. So it still would have been Steve Rogers. However, in the Loki trailer, you do see a short clip of what looks like New York being nuked, which could have been a fallout of Iron Man not saving them from the Chitauri in the first Avengers. So maybe they fail or something like that. That's what I'm thinking. And
well, again, if like you said, with the whole Tesseract scene, that's in that movie. So
right.
that could have been the, alternate.
The tipping point.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a huge thing because then that Ultron would have never been created without the Tesseract.
Mm-hmm.
So, it really does affect every follow-up movie from that because, I mean, the entire MCU from, Iron Man until Endgame was built around the Infinity Stones. I mean, they reference them in almost every single movie.
Even if it's not big, they give him a simple little shout out that it's going to it. And
absolutely,
we had an idea that we were eventually going to get to Infinity War as they kept slowly hitting at the stones every time.
Yep, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And now we're seeing, I guess, the effects of him going back in time, him living with Peggy, them growing old together, etc. His alter ego, which again, it's weird because you would assume that the other Captain America would have been at the funeral, correct? But only the old Cap was. So that's where my thought process of like, there's only one Captain America. I mean, again, if it is confirmed that there was a second one, that's awesome. But maybe that's what caused the Battle of New York to fail. But, even still, all of those memories, do these people still have them? Like, was Captain America existing in that same timeline? Like, how does that all shake out? These are all speculations. I'd love to see, a deep dive. Maybe we can do that one day into, how him returning the Infinity Stones, losing the Tesseract, etc., sort of affected the MCU timeline.
Well, yeah, anytime you start dealing with like multiverses and stuff like that, it can get real hairy real quick.
I want to end up like Charlie Day,
exactly,
a whole goddamn board of string somewhere.
Not Charlie. Not only do all these people exist, they've been wanting their mail for weeks.
Exactly.
Trees.
I'm not going to sleep for a month. It's going to be fantastic.
But what would you guys rather see? Would you guys rather see Cap come back as a mentor to Sam, or would you rather see him come back as an adversary against Sam?
110% an adversary.
Exactly. I'm totally with you. I think the adversary, you could get so much. There's so much more meat to develop that story and do something really cool with. Whereas being just an adversary, it's going to be kind of just a little here, a little there. It's not going to be as, I don't think you go as climactic with a slow buildup or anything like that as you could him being the adversary.
Now, Eddie, did you ever watch the CW's Flash? Like the TV show?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't watch it religiously, but like I've seen episodes. I watch it.
Would you want them to do like a season 1 Eobard Thawne type of storyline with Cap where like you think he's a pro and then you find out he's like a double agent for Hydra or something and that's the turn? Or would you rather him just straight up be the adversary the entire time? Like a Bucky?
No, I think the first way where kind of like slow and then boom. Everybody's shocked by the twist.
Right, like it seems like he's grooming Sam, and then there's the heel turn.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and you could even pull it so far as, right when he realizes that it's not him, he's not the original Steve Rogers. That's when, Steve Rogers sort of puts his arm up and the shield jumps to him. And then that's when the fight really starts to, kick things off. But you could even go, look into season 1 of S.H.I.E.L.D., like the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show. With the dude Grant, who was like everyone's best friend, and he turns out that he's a Hydra agent.
I forgot about that.
Yep.
Man, when did S.H.I.E.L.D. come out? That was what, like 2014?
Hey, it was like right after the first Avengers movie, I think, because Coulson dies, and then it's the Tahiti Project that brings him back.
Mm-hmm.
And not that it doesn't really spoil anything for you, Eddie, but you know how like in WandaVision they have like the commercial.
Yeah.
Like the first one was like the toaster, the second one was the watch.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the third one is actually a reference to the most recent season of oh
Agents
god,
of Shield.
yeah, Agents of Shield, and basically it's like this soap that in Agents of Shield, Coulson says has like mind control abilities. Like if you soak yourself in it and it gets in like onto your skin, like it could mind control you. So if and it's made by Hydra. So
Hydra
like
soak.
yeah, it's called Hydra Soak or something.
Fair
But
enough.
I could even see maybe they are going to bring back Cap as a good guy, but somehow he ends up getting like this mind control, and that's how he becomes like a high. Like there's a couple ways that they could do it, and I'm interested to see if it does come to fruition. Because right now I think it's all just rumors.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard any confirmation from Chris Evans or Chris Feige.
Correct.
But I really feel like that's a storyline that they could go, and that's one of the biggest things with like, because like obviously I'm a hardcore DC fan, but like I just feel
Mhm.
comics in general, I feel like there's just so much source material that people get super excited like we do, and they're like, oh, we could have this happen and this happen, this happen, and then you end up with Spider-Man 3, like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3, not the
Yeah.
upcoming one. And
Yeah.
that's where I get nervous. Is it's like if you're gonna rock that storyline, like you got to give it the attention and the details that you are like that you want.
Exactly. There's nothing worse than where you have like this awesome thing that happened in the comics where it was so fully fledged out, and then they just kind of try to half-ass hit it, and it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. That it's tough for people to cover because, like, obviously we like the comics and we know a little more than just the average fan that just watches only the movies. So they don't know what actually happened. Sometimes they only see what was shown to them on the screen. And if whoever takes, they could take an awesomely full fledged idea and just kind of half ass it, and then boom, now some of the people in the world are like, that's a garbage idea because it wasn't done right.
Right, and like that was the biggest thing with Batman versus Superman. Like the theatrical version is a hot steaming pile of shit. Like I'm not even gonna lie, they cut out so much that like half the storylines don't even make fucking sense.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you watch the extended cut, everything ties together. They explain everything, and a lot of those scenes, like there are multiple times in that movie, just like in Civil War, where you can pause it and you're literally looking at a shot straight out of a comic book.
Mm-hmm.
Like
I love
for example, in Civil War, the iconic like Iron Man shooting his ionic cannon at Cap's shield, and Cap's kind of like, and it's just straight up like the way it's silhouetted and the way that it's framed in between the two pillars to kind of give you that claustrophobic feeling that they're both having of going after each other. Like, there's a lot of things like that like you can do really well, but like you said, like if you don't give it that little bit of detail and you kind of like look over the important stuff, like it could go south real fast.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something that I think Kevin Feige sort of, I don't want to say perfected, but he's doing a fantastic job of keeping it true to the comics while putting his own little spin on it. And then, also it's fan service at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, for me, I'm pretty happy with everything so far. Obviously, we've had our talks about how, Iron Man 3 could have been better. Thor: The Dark World probably could have been better.
See, I actually
Captain
like Thor: The
Marvel.
Dark World because
I've
it gave
come
you
to
a lot
appreciate.
of backstory in that.
Sure,
Like it wasn't as actiony as you come to know from the new MCU, but it gave you a ton of like backstory into that whole part of Thor and everything like that.
I could arguably say that without Thor: The Dark World, like the Infinity Stones wouldn't have been as impactful because that's where you really learned about the stones. Like you knew about the Tesseract, and you were like, but like I don't think anybody realized that was an Infinity Stone except for like the super hardcore fans were like, oh my god, that's an like everyone just thought it was this mystical thing.
Exactly.
Then you had the reality, liquid in Thor: The Dark World. So like at first people were like, oh, like is that going to turn into a stone or like what's it going to do? And it's like, and they never really explained that. I don't think how.
Yeah,
Thanos,
I don't think they did ever.
Yeah, because like it was a liquid, and then they had it in the canister. They handed it to the collector, and then the next time you see it is after Thanos already has the stone, and he's playing the prank on the Guardians.
Well, exactly. I think, I mean, and again, I could be speculating. I'm not entirely sure, but I mean, with the Power Stone and shit like that, like he very well could have made it into, like, he would have just crushed it, and that turned it into a stone. I mean, look at Vision. Basically took an unrefined stone and put it into his head.
Yeah.
Like I mean, Christ, there's no fucking rules when it comes to Infinity Stones, their shapes and sizes, sadly. But
yeah, I mean, honestly, you could just go with the simple explanation, like it's the reality stone and it has like the mind of its own. So if it wants to be liquid, it can be liquid. If it
Yeah.
wants to be solid, it could be solid. If it wants to be like whatever it wants to be, and almost give it like its own personality and life force. But hey, but yeah, no, I'm just trying to think of where else they might be able to go, or if there's any other news that just broke. I know we obviously said Doctor Doom and Michael Fassbender.
Now, like, if speaking of Michael Fassbender, with him kind of taking on the Doctor Doom, what do you think that does for, like, do you think that's going to be, like, do you think they'll be able to replace what you come to see from his Magneto? Like, do you think they'll be able to replace him?
I think that's going to be the brunt of a lot of Deadpool's jokes.
Yeah.
I mean, he already did it in the first Deadpool movie. He's like, we're going to go see Xavier. He's like, which one? Are we going to see McAvoy or Stewart? That's timeline's so confusing. So, like, now.
I mean, I look forward to that. And, you know, that's, yeah, obviously Deadpool in and of himself, you know, we're gonna do an episode on Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe and some upcoming Deadpool news, but he's going to bring that sort of humor back into the MCU, sort of, very much similar to Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Right. And not to stray away, though, from your question, Eddie. I mean, for me, I think it could really shake up the MCU. I would be curious to see who they have come in and play Magneto. If they're going to have, I would assume you're going to have Magneto if you're going to bring in Speed and Wiccan and Wanda, and obviously you already had Pietro, which are his kids and grandkids. I'm just curious, what Magneto are they going to go with? Are they going to go with like an older Magneto? Or are they going to go with like a younger Magneto? Like, how are they going to do that? Because obviously, like, Ian McKellen did a great job, but he's probably too old to reprise the role.
Oh, he's definitely too old now.
Right.
I loved his Magneto. That's what I was a kid watching that, and it was great. But I don't think, and I think that's going to be the big part, is when we see who they cast for Magneto, you're going to see what kind of direction they're going to go in with that, because you can't just have an old, like a super old Magneto, and then James McAvoy still reprise as Professor Xavier. Because they all got to be around about the same age.
I mean, honestly, I think it's gotten kind of debunked, but actually, well, no, it hasn't really been debunked yet. But one of my theories is that Wanda is technically a mutant. Like, from what they said, Strucker was using the stones to kind of like what they did to Wade Wilson. Like, they brought out his mutant genes.
Okay.
And from what I understand, like, that was actually the experiments that were going on in Sokovia. I think the person that's reaching out to her in, like, through the radio and all that, I think it's Xavier trying to reach her.
That makes sense. That does make sense, and that is cool.
Because number one, it would have to be some kind of a telepath, I would think, if she's actually trapped inside her own head or inside some kind of a simulation. It would have to be a telepath that would have to be able to communicate with her. It's clearly a male voice, so that I don't think it would be a Jean Grey or anything like that. So one of my running theories right now is that this could be how they're going to start introducing some of the X-Men, because obviously, like I said, her kids are Speed and Wiccan, Tommy and Billy.
Exactly.
And they've already kind of confirmed that they're going to be in the universe. I don't know how they're going to run with that. But if they're going to be in the universe, that's Magneto's grandchildren. So, like, obviously that introduces, hey, eventually we're going to have Magneto, because those two are part of the Young Avengers, along with, I think it's Ant-Man's daughter and a couple others.
Hawkeye's daughter.
Right. And they've already started setting her up.
I was going to say, you saw her learning how to shoot.
And then Ant-Man's daughter, apparently in the next Ant-Man and the Wasp movie, Quantumanium or whatever it's called, she's going to play a big role in that. So, like, they're kind of building, like, the next round of Avengers, which we even saw in Endgame. Like, we saw Wanda and Black Widow, Rescue, like we saw all the girl females, Valkyrie, like team up and kind of like have like their own Avengers. So we're starting to get like you have the Avengers and then you have like these subdivisions. So
Yep.
I don't know. I'm hyped to see how they're going to do because they're going to do it too through TV shows. Like that gives them so much more grounds to work with because you can fit so much more detail into it because you're not worried about all these other things. So rather than having 2 hours to cut everything down to, now, for example, WandaVision I think is 9 episodes, and how long are they? Like 45 minutes?
Nah, they're like 30 minutes.
I was gonna say I think they're only half an hour.
Half
but
an
even
hour.
So, 9 episodes at half an hour. That gives you
that's still
4.5 hours. Exactly.
Yep. And what they're trying to do with that is they're not even trying to fit a ton of information in each episode. You know, like you said, they're sort of breaking it down. They're giving each episode its little bite, but they're also so many like little Easter eggs in each episode that it's so many callbacks or so many, you know, foreshadowings and stuff like that, that it's like, I mean, again, if you don't know, you don't know, but it's going to cause people to research.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So now we're getting, you know, again, Eddie, it's not, and it's not going to ruin anything for you, but you know, we're waiting for characters to pop up like Maria Rambeau, who is Captain Marvel's friend's daughter.
Okay.
If you watch the Captain Marvel movie, she was like the little girl
who,
like they confirmed that's who that was, and it was a cameo, just like they kind of confirmed like, oh, like that was actually like Peter Parker that Tony saved the Iron Man mask on in Iron Man 3, like.
So little things like that, and you know, she in the comics plays as Captain America, Photon, and something else. I think Phasma or something along those lines. But yeah, she was Captain Marvel. So, you know, it's things like that that are, you know, coming into play. And, you know, Eddie, once you watch it, we'll, you know, have another conversation about that if you want to come back on. But yeah, I mean, when we see these big Easter eggs from any of the movies and TV shows, I think they're, you know, just going to build huge into Phase 4 and the multiverse theory, the quantum verse, you know, all of that stuff to, again, it's just an infinite expansion at this point.
Oh, yeah. Now, did I hear, I think I heard this, that Gwyneth Paltrow doesn't want to reprise her role?
I mean, it's very possible. I haven't heard anything, you know, positive or negative in that regard, but look back at minus Endgame and I mean, like the original Iron Man movie, she hasn't been in like too much.
No, I'm pretty sure she was only in ones that Happy produced.
Probably. And I mean, look at it. I mean, she was in Iron Man 3. She had to be in all the Iron Man movies because she's Iron Man's wife now. But
exactly,
was she in Iron Man 3? I thought that was the one she wasn't in.
No, she was.
She was in
Iron
Man
3.
No, 3 is the one with the Mandarin.
Yeah,
and he blows up the thing. So I think she's in it for like briefly.
Yeah.
But once he blows up like Tony's home, I don't think she shows back up until like, or no, actually I lied because she gets infected with the stuff.
Yeah, the stuff from AIM. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's the one that she's like one of the main characters in. Iron Man 2, I think, is when she's sort of like, you know, hit and miss.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. My bad.
But yeah, I mean, she doesn't really have much of a role. And she, again, Iron Man dies. She could very well just go into like a depression and that could be her reasoning for not popping up again. Like she's doing her own thing. She wants to get out of the hero biz. She never wanted Tony in the hero biz. So she's going to get as far away from that as possible. I mean, hell, Stark Industries is basically, you know, other shy of funding Spider-Man, doesn't really have a hand in this anymore.
Yeah.
Or doesn't need to, at least, as far as Gwyneth Paltrow goes. She can play the, you know, oh, Pepper gave me this, or, oh, you know, Pepper sent this over, you know, the other day, whatever. Like, they can reference her, but they don't need to have her on screen.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I was kind of hyped for like Rescue. I would like to see her actually in the suit, but
I mean, you could still get Rescue, like, you know what I mean? Like, they just may not do like the Tony Stark close up of the face inside the HUD and all that. Like,
well, I mean, and you could do just like what was it in Spider-Man when the suit flies around
by itself,
it does its own thing, you know. So, I mean, there's a million ways they could do it. She could also reconsider. Who knows? I mean, at this point, it's all up in the air.
Yeah.
But I mean, so Eddie, is that all you had in mind? Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I have left lingering.
No, absolutely, Dan. Take your time. We are here all day.
But not Jay, because he's dead.
He very well might be dead. That's okay. I'm
Leave poor Jay alone. He actually left his house last night.
yeah, for the first time in 6 months.
His body's not used to the movement of,
No.
of leaving the vicinity of his house.
Yeah, so he hasn't seen the sun in years.
Stoop kid's afraid to leave the stoop.
God damn
Yeah,
it. That literally is Jay.
I think that's all I got for today. I'm sure I'm going to text you later about something, but I think that's all I got on my mind right now.
Bro, we're more than welcome to, let us know what topics you have, dude. We can have it back on. That ain't an issue at all.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're interested in Deadpool, feel free to
I love
feel free to hang out.
He's fucking awesome.
Yeah, that's gonna be our follow-up is Deadpool kills the MCU and Deadpool 3 news and how it's gonna affect the MCU.
Yeah. Nah, what you call? I'll do some research and I'll come to you guys with an idea. And when I come up with something I think that we could talk about, really juicy and fun.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Man. Whatever you want. Like, it could be a movie breakdown. It could be a TV show breakdown. It could be a video game breakdown. It could be a character breakdown. You name it, whatever. Let us know.
Oh, for sure. I got you. This is fun, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We're glad you can come on.
Actually, I'm really hyped. Like, this is a Sunday morning, sitting here just talking about superheroes. It feels like I'm a kid again watching the shit.
Goddamn right. And that's why we do this. We do this for the people that, don't want to necessarily lose their childhood right away and, want to sort of reminisce in the good old days of Saturday morning cartoons with some cereal.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Eddie, if that's all you've got, I've got nothing else. I'm trying to save up as much information for Deadpool as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Mark?
No, just if you guys are all enjoying this and enjoy listening to us, reach out to us. Let us know what you would want to hear us cover. We're on Facebook. We have a Facebook group, Something Super Podcast. We're recently now on Instagram at Something Super. Reach out, email us. Our email's on the page. Click the link in our bio to on Instagram to get to our weekly episodes, and we just really appreciate everyone that listens in, and we just love doing this.
I could not agree more. So for those of you that are listening, thank you so much for coming back out again. Based on my recent research and our analytics, thank you for our listeners in the Americas, Canada, Ireland, and Germany.
Sorry about McGregor, Ireland.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we're sorry about that. But for the rest of you, thank you so much for coming out and listening. Like Mark said, check us out on Facebook at Something Super Podcast, on Instagram at Something Super Podcast, Something Super Podcast at gmail.com. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, we are on all major streaming platforms. That includes Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and thank you, Anchor, for hosting us. Last but not least, I'm Steve.
I'm Mark.
And we'll catch you guys next week.